Good evening, friends. Professor Singh Horticulture Foundation, a not-for-profit organization, and myself welcome you all to the talk number 1 of this series, new series, 4H, Urban Horticulture for Health and Happiness. BSHF is thankful to Bayer Seminis to sponsor this webinar series. It is a matter of pride that Dr. Anand Kumar Singh, Deputy Director General, Horticulture Science, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, an eminent horticulture scientist and plant biotechnologist, is inaugurating this series. We are thankful to him to accept our request despite his very busy schedule of official assignments and inaugurate this series. Shortly, I will request him to share his opinion on the series and words of advice, keeping in view the research and development on the subject by Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, as well as other ministries of Bharat Sarkar. I also welcome co-organizers Dr. Pritam Kalia, ICR Rafi Ahmed Kidwai Awardee, and former head Division of Vegetable Science, ICAR-IARI, New Delhi, and Dr. Shailendra Rajan, former director, ICAR-Central Institute of Tropical Horticulture, Lucknow. The talk this evening is on an interesting topic: how to grow healthy vegetables at your home, by Mr. Raji Joseph, who is Value Chain and Business Development Manager for South Asia at Bayer Vegetable Seeds, Thane. We welcome Raji Joseph, who honored our request to deliver the webinar. Friends, now I request Chief Guest, Dr. A.K. Singh ji, for his words of advice. Dr. A.K. Singh ji, kindly unmute and...
Thank you, sir. Very good evening to all of you. Most respected Dr. Brahma Singh ji. I mean, there is no any need of any introduction to his profile. The entire fraternity of India of horticulture sciences, everybody knows him and his leadership which he has given to the horticulture research, development and extension also, from difficult areas also and from not so difficult areas also. And many of his programs that he started in his career has really been so useful, and so useful from the point of view of the production also, and also from the point of view of education in the field of horticulture and in general agriculture. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me a chance to Dr. Brahma Singh Foundation on Horticulture, which is doing a wonderful job in terms of dissemination of the technologies, knowledge, wisdom, and many times on this platform, I noticed that the success stories also come in. That is very learning to me also, and I think this will be equally useful to the stakeholders, particularly those who want to come into this kind of enterprises, horticulture particularly, either fruits, vegetables, ornamental, spices, or as a whole horticulture, including agriculture also, because we can't keep horticulture totally separate from agriculture. So that has been doing a wonderful job, and I'm really happy to be associated with this foundation for several years now. And particularly today, I am delighted to be here when he has asked me, he has ordered me actually to speak for a few minutes here before Raji Joseph joins and makes his presentation. And I'm really happy to see my old colleague, Dr. Pritam Kalia ji, who was we together were in the horticulture division. He was heading vegetable sciences division. I was heading fruits and horticulture technology division together. So happy always to see you, Dr. Pritam Kalia. And we always remember your contributions, and either in education or in research, and the technologies that you developed that has gone to the farmers field in a way that farmers are earning profit. And those farmers who are really doing the way you have suggested, you have recommended, they are really happy to follow your advices and recommendations, and they are serving the community in a way where this is not only remunerative to them, also it is also serving new kind of products to the societies. And I mean, today's topic has been chosen, Dr. Brahma Singh Saab has chosen, is a very, very apt and very, very useful topic in the context of development which is happening today. The urbanization is rising as per the estimates. Maybe roughly by the turn of 2050, the global population is going to touch more than 9.6 billion people. That's a massive number of people to feed the nutritional diet, particularly which is rich in proteins, vitamins, minerals. I mean, so many other health beneficial compounds in the vegetables and spices, seed spices, herbaceous plants. So that is why this is so important. And particularly in this context of high value horticulture, in the urban context, the leafy vegetables are so important, both from cultivation point of view, remuneration point of view, and also environmental as well as health point of view. And you know that with the expansion of the urbanization, be it Asia or across the continent also, the substantial area is going into the development of urban outfits, which is really at the cost of the fertile lands, which would have been otherwise dedicated for the production of the food crops or horticultural crops, representing each and every set of the horticultural setup. And therefore, and once the urbanization rises, the demand for the food and nutrition also rising. Awareness is much more in the urban areas than the rural areas. Buying capacity of this segment of population is slightly higher than the urban population. Now, this urban population is knowing that what is beneficial, what kind of food and vegetables is useful to them from the health point of view. As a result, in days to come, in years to come, or in decades to come, I think we are going to witness the spike in the demand of such commodities for all time to come in. And as you know that the ICAR is one of the very big custodian for the development of technologies, giving the advocacy and pushing through policy means also through the Ministry of Agriculture, what kind of schemes, what kind of programs should be there in place so that the integrated way of development of horticulture, particularly for high value commodities, where investment is very high, where the risk factors are very high, yet they are remunerative, and they are such a set of crops which can fit very well. At least more than 50% of the horticultural crops, they fit very well into the cropping schemes which the government of India is pushing through the policy, like through crop diversification. I'm not talking of the trees, but the annual crops, seasonal crops, like these crops. And raising the cropping intensity, as a result, income also rises. And at the same time, there is a diversity in the supply of the commodity from the same field in a calendar year at a rate which is much more profitable than maybe than traditional cropping systems. So taking the cognizance of this one and the changes which is happening, the interest that is the community at community level is happening, and also the kind of investment coming into this particular area, ICR is also promoting the development of newer technologies. For example, the vertical farming system for vegetables, for spices, for seed spices, for several kind of the vegetable crops. And also, as you know that in case of the fruit basket, we have very limited option for the vertical farming and hydroponics similar technologies. Nevertheless, the nursery business, which is also going to rise, and in each and every city, the demand of the nursery planting material is rising year on year. And if you try to follow the ways from where, which part of the country, what are the areas, which region of the country, which particular state is contributing to the supply to the Delhi market or Bombay market or Bangalore, Chennai or other markets, it is really astonishing to know. See, the West Bengal alone for the Delhi market is supplying each and every season representative for horticulture, particularly ornamental plants. Even for example, the movement of certain crops, there are many actually to name, where, for example, the coconut, I came across with the demand of the coconut planting material, areca planting material from the other parts of the country for the northeastern states. They are being multiplied in urban areas in many of the southern cities. And just imagine how much distance this is going to travel from the mainland or to the peninsular land to the northeastern parts. It takes about 7 to 10 days sometimes to transport. And just imagine how much carbon footprint is left behind the supply of such kind of planting material or seed material. Therefore, taking the cognizance of these things, ICR has started many schemes and has also advised the central government, Ministry of Agriculture also, how through policy support, some financial assistance, some technical backup could be given by the ICR institutions in the respective regions, and also by the agricultural research institutions and the Krishi Vigyan Kendras, those who are associated with the ICR institutions, or through Krishi Vigyan Kendras of the universities, or there are some independent, they operate like a private agency. So we are working in tandem with them, and several technologies, if I may, if I have 2-3 minutes more, then I can explain. See, currently we produce roughly 55 million tons of the potato, and in India hardly we are meeting the requirement of seed material, high quality seed material. Hardly the replacement rate is 25% or little plus or minus. But the ICR took to cognizance, and Central Potato Research Institute developed a technology of initially the hydroponic system of the high quality seed breeder seed production. And now they have scaled up the technology, and they have gone one level up by using the aeroponic system. And today we are producing more than 3,000 tons of the breeder seeds of the newly developed high yielding varieties, those which have the ability to withstand the onset of stress conditions, high yield potential. And also some of the varieties, they are biofortified, and many more are in the line. So the demand is rising for such kind of planting materials, and we are going to fortify the existing outfit of the aeroponic system, so that we want to double the production of the breeder seeds through institutional mode. And maybe in next 2 years or something, we are planning to produce more than 6,000 tons of the breeder seed, followed by their multiplication in the open field conditions, before this is given after a couple of cycles to the farmers of the potato growers in any part of the country. And we are not only concentrating at CPRI, we are also concentrating how the similar system can be replicated in various parts of the country wherever the potato cultivation happens on a commercial scale basis, and Northeast is one priority areas. So that our aim is that if we can scale it up to a level where we can cut down the cost of production. Of course, our cost of production is much lower than the cost of production which happens in Europe or other countries. They are the supplier of the quality seed material to the BIMSTEC countries. For example, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Myanmar, whatever area of potato cultivation is there, sir, they are getting the seed and planting material from Scotland via Holland to these countries. So India, being a very prominent player in the region, India enjoys today a different place in this particular league, and our technologies, our abilities, and our success stories are very revealing, and they want to replicate these kind of technologies in their own lands. As a result, their trust is coming into Indian technologies the way we have done it, with modification in the technologies, because each and every technology may not be suitable to them. Nevertheless, India is supporting the BIMSTEC nations so that they can take up the high quality planting material production using not only the aeroponics but other similar methods also. When the urbanization rising, rate of urbanization is rising, then this area, the urban horticulture, provides an opportunity of the production of variety of things, and in a way which is not only sustainable, not only beneficial to the consumers as well as the stakeholders. It also attracts the schools, the different levels of the players in the society, those who are not knowing about these technologies, how this benefits ecologically, what kind of therapeutic value is there in case of the urban horticulture promotion, not only for production alone, but also how to develop the landscape in the new format of urbanizations, so that the claustrophobic development which was happening in many of the cities, that is going to give a new dimension to this one, so that great areas, great urban amenities developed where the greenery is there, variety of the indigenous plants are being grown in the form of the lawns or the sideways or the avenue trees. This will not only serve the purpose of its nature of purifying the air, fixing the carbon dioxide, but also this will be a knowledge resource also by promotion of the indigenous avenue trees. And we have also suggested many crops through one district, one commodities, so that a brand can be created for those commodities which do not occupy in the mainstream production. And there will be a regional representation of those kind of crops which they could not found a place in the mainstream production of horticultural commodities. So through ICAR, through policy of the Ministry of Agriculture also, we are trying to take up the promotion of the promotion in way of developing newer varieties, creating awareness in the societies and in the farming communities, creating community not only about the new crop or regional crops, regional food crops, vegetable crops, ornamental crops, seed spices, herbaceous plants, but also what kind of nutritional benefit is there in these set of crops. Therefore, we are trying to create awareness among the growers, entrepreneurs also, and those who are looking for any window of any investment in these new set of crops, so that the large scale production can happen. And ICR, along with the other partners, KVKs and other agricultural universities, we are trying to develop the new varieties, new management options, new agronomic practices. And through these things, in a combined way, we are taking the technology to the farmers field by demonstration, through our institutes also, through our KVKs also, and by the supporting seed and planting material free of cost initially to the farmers of the respective regions. So we know that the demand is so much that ICR alone probably will be in a difficult position to cater to the needs. Therefore, we are trying to impart training to the private agencies also, so that the new entrepreneurial system comes up, and once the trust is installed in their mind in the technology through ICR institutions, I think they will take it up to the next level, where this will not be only remunerative, ecologically sustainable, but also it will serve in the process of creating a brand for itself for the Indian communities. And also, as the government of India, particularly Prime Minister, says that the agri export must be double. When he said that a couple of years back, then it was 36, close to $37 billion. And you must have read in the newspapers that it's soon, only yesterday, Financial Times reported, Financial or Economic Times, it reported that it is already going to touch $50 billion. So once this is going to happen, and India being India represents Indian agriculture, represents the tropics, subtropics, temperate conditions. So the option for the farmers in this particular region is massive for our own consumption also, either in a fresh format or in a value-added format, but also to the temperate part of the world or anywhere wherever we find our commodities are competitive for two things: the quality as well as cost. So opportunities are huge. Challenge is on us to develop the matching technologies. Challenge is on us to take these technologies to the stakeholders in the shortest possible time. Therefore, when we are promoting urban horticulture, we are also taking help of the very robust technologies like ICT applications, how the technology can be disseminated through ICT tools to the far off areas. One more example I'd like to highlight here, sir, that we developed Indian Institute of Horticulture, Bangalore. They developed an app that was a seed promotion app through which anybody, any part of the country can book their order for the seed, and seed will be dispatched and after receiving the payment online. So we were not able to meet the demand. Then we came to know that there is a YONO app by the State Bank of India where they have access to 2.6 crore farmers. So we merged our app into the YONO app. Now we have access to more than 3 crore farmers in any part of the country. And the benefit of this app is that in any part of the country, anyone can book the seed of the planting seed or some of the planting materials by online payment, and it will be delivered at their doorstep in a limited time. And in the last 1 year, when we started, our sale has doubled from 36, 40 lakh on this mechanism, not the total. That has surpassed 1.2 crore in 11 months only. And the farmers and the indent which we are getting is, sir, from the northeastern states, many states which are very far. Otherwise, those people, those farmers were not able to go to the IHR Bangalore personally and then buy the seed. Here, it's not only the supply of the seed which has strengthened by this kind of application, but also along with the seed, we are sending the technology. And on a phone line, farmer can have access to this one. Therefore, the application of such kind of technologies, modern way of transaction, and we are also looking into the application of how in the urban horticulture can be promoted through application of IoTs. How the modern greenhouses, retractable greenhouses can be developed in the nearby urban areas where the potential of production per unit area is so high. I visited a farm which was doing the cultivation of the tomato in the greenhouses a couple of years back. In front of me, he harvested the tomato and he said, sir, it's about 50 to 60 kg tomato in a square meter area. And the productivity of tomato in India is 24 tons, if I remember correctly. So this kind of productivity is there, but there are some farmers in Tamil Nadu areas, they are cultivating some varieties of tomato. They are informing us that the production is more than 90 tons. And the time has increased from 9 months to almost 11 months or something. So the potential of the technology, deployment of these technologies, and matching management options, control measures of pests and pathogens, because in the event of changing climate conditions, the pressure on land is going to rise, and therefore the aspect of urban horticulture, which is much needed in volumes, if it is promoted in a right way, I think this is going to meet the requirement of the quantum and also the nutritional requirement of the urban areas, and this will be environmentally sustainable as well. Because the high volume of vegetables or fruits, if it is transported, which could be cultivated in and around these urban areas, the transport process can be reduced. Supply chain can be developed for a shorter distances than the longer distances here in tropics and subtropics. So I think the agenda of the Dr. Brahma Singh's foundation is to promote the vertical farming, the promotion of plant superior planting material in soilless cultures, aeroponics, hydroponics, which is going to be the very integral part of the urbanization, will be very, very useful, not only to the stakeholders, but also to the consumers, also to the dwellers, and also this is going to create huge employment opportunities for the young farmers, the tech-savvy farmers, tech-savvy youngsters, and this will lead to development of a new kind of horticultural enterprise which never happened in the past. And I hope the experience of the experts like Dr. Brahma Singh, Dr. Pritam Kalia, Dr. Raji, Joseph, and many more, those who have joined us today on this platform, when Dr. Brahma Singh Foundation is promoting the urban horticulture to cater to the needs of the growing urbanization, use of the technologies which has been developed through the public funded programs and the schemes, that will be a very befitting application of these things and intensification of the production system for the urban areas for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And this will put India in a different league that will demonstrate our valued ability in terms of the technology developer, user, and developing the scale, which will be very useful to the neighboring countries, and India can play a very big roles in promotion of Indian developed technologies, products, and this will create another big market for our agri inputs for the neighboring countries. Otherwise, they are buying at a whopping prices from the Occidental countries. So our idea should be to promote these technologies through foundation like this. And I know Dr. Brahma Singh is very tenacious in terms of organizing such kind of meetings, webinars. He never hesitates to contact even his juniors also. Wherever he finds, he understands that technology is there, potential is there, knowledge and wisdom is there, so that it comes on this platform, whereby it goes to the stakeholders, so that the benefit accrues to each and every stakeholder. With this, ICAR will continue, sir, in our efforts to develop the technologies. And I must mention here that in ICAR, if you talk of the entire number of crops in horticulture segment, is more than 150 crops. The ICR works in order to develop the new technologies, new materials, and then take it to the farmer's field. So I think all of them are not equitably distributed in view of the financial allocation or human resources allocations. But I think now, with fact that we, after having realized the potential of these set of crops, there are institutions, commodity-based institutions also, are the institutions which they work on the composite set of crops. They have also taken up crops where they never researched. Now they know the potential. And with the successful delivery of the results, I think this will find a suitable place in the mainstream production of the vegetables or herbaceous plants or seed spices plants or even spices also. That will be really a big tribute to those who thought of these ideas. And I think there are much more interesting topic is going to be there by Dr. Rajiv Joseph. So on this occasion, I must thank Dr. Brahm Singh sir for inviting me here to become part of today's webinar, which is going to be so useful to the audience. And Raji Joseph, I think, will justify the need of his expertise, his knowledge, and resources which he has with him, or which he carries through his decades of experience, will be very, very useful, and this will attract investment from the parties. Thank you so much, and I wish this webinar to be a great success. Thank you so much, sir. Sabhi ko namaskar.
Thanks a lot, Dr. A.K. Singh, for your word of advice and highlighting what all ICR is doing and tends to do to promote this particular subject. I highlight your talk, the thing which you have mentioned, the planting material. I salute, because the planting material is the main thing, whether it is horticulture or something else, which you have rightly pointed out and highlighted the importance, and not only this urban sector, because most of the nurseries are in urban areas, and the seed business is operated from the urban areas, but the entrepreneurship potential of this are immense, and you have rightly pointed out the modern technology, the future horticulture technologies. Yes, all these soilless one have got the importance. So friends, we have got a speaker, Mr. Raji. Before I just request Dr. Kalia to introduce him, I profusely thank Dr. A.K. Singh for his word of advice and his thoughts, and I promise that all these what he has talked about we will consider and highlight in the subsequent talks. Once again, thanks a lot for sparing time and your noble thoughts, useful thoughts, which has encouraged us. So with the rich experience on this subject, Raji is going to talk about how to grow vegetables in home. I wanted to talk about that, but due to paucity of literature, I'm cutting short, and straightway I request my colleague Dr. Pritam Kalia to just briefly introduce Mr. Raji and then hand over the floor to him. Dr. Kalia, please.
Good evening, everyone. Most respected Professor Brahm Singh ji, founder chairman of Professor Brahm Singh Horticulture Foundation. It's great that we have chief guest today, most respected chief guest of today, Dr. Anand Kumar Singh ji, Deputy Director General Horticulture Science, ICAR, and today's speaker, Raji Joseph ji, and the co-organizer, Dr. Shailendra Rajan ji. It's my profound privilege to introduce today's speaker in new series and the inauguration day of the new series that Professor Brahm Singh ji has thought about, of the new concept that is going to be deliberated during the entire series. Diverse lectures would be there as detailed by chief guest Professor Anand Kumar Singh ji, that it's going to be futuristic subject from all angles point of view, as he has detailed the benefits that it's going to have to the general community, to the farmers, and to the consumers also, that healthy products would be coming up to because health is the issue today everywhere. So with that, I would like to introduce today's speaker, who would be speaking on how to grow healthy vegetable at home. Mr. Raji Joseph has had his graduation in agriculture from Allahabad Agriculture Institute, and he had marketing management from Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. He is associated with the Bayer Crop Science for the past 23 years in sales and marketing domains. Currently, Raji ji is working as a value chain and business development manager for South Asia with the Bayer's Vegetable Seed Division. His role helps in understanding, collaborating, and supporting the contract farming companies, exporters, and processors with the hybrids which can deliver the desired output. Uh, Raji Joseph, in his previous roles, included working as a journal manager for Environmental Science Division, which involved the protection of humankind against vector-borne diseases, protection of structures against termites, and management of household pests in food and hospitality industry. As a food chain manager, he was involved in the development of plant protection protocols for processors and exporters, and for considering the emeralds of importing countries. He has worked in the plantation crops like tea, coffee, and cardamom of South India, and also has had connection with the field crops and vegetables. So, with this experience of Raji Joseph ji, which is going to be very important topic, as he has in his biodata, he has worked on pest control side. So, because this technology is totally accepted for homegrown vegetables from the point of view of that no pesticide. So, almost organic aspects of control of any diseases or insects, if at all they are, that will be highlighted by Joseph ji. So, with this short introduction, I would invite, not taking much time to stand between viewers and the speaker, I would invite him to take the floor and deliver his talk. Raji Joseph ji.
Thank you, Dr. Pritam, for the introduction and taking me into the meeting today, and bringing me the thoughts of what I have on the urban home garden segment on how to grow a healthy vegetable. It was really pleasure to hear Dr. A.K. Singh on how the thoughts are there for urban horticulture and how his visions are there and how the overall Indian government is also looking in to see the larger development in this space, especially with the vertical farming and also with the hydroponics part. Thank you, Dr. Brahma, for inviting us and keeping into the hall, inviting for this web series, because it's really nice to get associated with the BSHF, which is very much interested in spreading the knowledge of horticulture. So, let me go straight into the sharing. Hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
visible.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you, Dr. Anand, for creating a context on how it is very important to see that the urban horticulture or the urban agriculture is going to be important and taking a very, very, very futuristic place in the going forward seasons. Well, I thought of bringing up certain thoughts on the overall topic of how the home garden has evolved, and then also what can be the vegetables which are suitable, what are the elements in urban gardening, and also the key follow-ups for growing a healthy vegetable. Last, I would like to also highlight the initiatives which has been taken as home garden from Bayer Semnis team. So this is a brief which I would be taking through the audience. Uh, we have seen that there is a large transformation in the horticulture, urban horticulture especially. So we can see that there is space which is there from the larger, which was there in villages, to the compact space of the urban population, which is there in the space available. Indian population, we can always see, has gone from 20% of urbanization to almost 35%, which is a huge numbers. So with the huge numbers moving forward, we could see the larger spaces getting shrinked and then getting into a compact space, where it is very important to see that to feed the people, how do we do the agriculture? And as we see in context of how the urban home garden is increasing, this has become a change where from a livelihood which a farmer is taking to a passion where people in an urban city would like to take a home garden part of it. This also has brought in a transformation where you can see the traditional knowledge which is there to people of the new generation who would like to see, try it out with the new technologies, try it out with available resources, and bring that satisfaction of how urban gardening can be done in and around their home. Of course, not to mention the very primary important factor, like how do we feed the nutrient requirements of the growing population. So that brings a very, very important factor on how the transformation of urban horticulture has happened. And when we went through on what are the reasons behind the urban farming, as you know, today our life is all dependent on how the apps work. Really, the apps decide what time you have to do an exercise, what's the nutrients you have, what's that you should eat, what's that you should not eat. So it's all a health conscious group of generation which is developing. And this is also leading to the thoughts of how we can go for an urban farming. When we look at these things, we also see that people are also getting aware from the media on what the chemicals or what is it involved while during an cultivation. This is also bringing a thought on why not to cultivate a crop in my own space which is available. Why not I do a cultivation which will be good for me and my family. Going forward, we have also seen in the last 2 years that COVID has put all of us inside our home. It has made it into a small boxes into our life. So it's been all only whether it is going to be children or whether it is going to be adult. It has become very important, very, very narrow in our social life. We have been very much limited in our general activities. So while doing a home garden, we have seen that it is also increasing to understand and having a happy bonding between the family, which also brings a happiness part of it. Nonetheless, to mention, we have seen a good population which has been moving from a village to a city, and during this migration, there is always certain thing which is always emotionally attached, the greenery around the place where we have grown. So we have seen this also taking an important decision making on how an urban gardening, whether it is going to be a floriculture or whether it is going to be a horticulture, has evolved. So this has been very much influencing in an urban gardening. And what all choice of vegetables are there, basically, I think the group here would always be knowing that what it can be cultivated. I mean, not so we can see that it basically can be those vegetables, those condiments, or those exotic vegetables which has a rooting system which is not too deep, which can be very well fit into a space of of the urban situations which are there. So we started as an organization to understand what are the real challenging factors when it comes to urban gardening, on home gardening part of it. And during our survey, we could find multiple points which came across, which we then made into a bucket list and then found that there are many elements in home gardening. Especially it meets on, like, people were very much having a doubt on how to grow. The advisory parts were missing, or they were not. Always it is being thought that whatever the institutions, people would think it as majorly a point of farming as an agriculture part of it. People on home gardening were much on the advisory part missing. Again, they were much more concerned on what is the media I should grow, where I should grow, what type of seed is available, what should be the nutrient management, what's the pest and disease management. So there have been multiple thoughts which came to a doubts which has been a challenge for an urban gardener. So that's where we picked up these elements to be very, very important for home garden. And of course, it's very important to also understand to give solutions to what, where, and how a solution can be provided or what can be done. That's where I bring on to a discussion topic on today's webinar. So I understand this is just a beginning of a webinar, and it would be continuing with multiple topics which would be related into urban horticulture, which would give certain times a little deeper knowledge on what's available and what can be. So today I would like to take or carry through the whole presentation to show across like what's possible or the over what we should be thinking when it comes to home garden. So the space, when I think of available around me for home garden, the quick things which come to me if I am in a compact space, it's a balcony around me, which has a small pots which could be hardly 10 to 15, and where I would like to see that the crops which I want to cultivate, which can be very easily to my platter, could be fixed. If I'm lucky enough, I do have an individual home where I do have a terrace with a bit of larger space, where how do I accommodate the growing, or how can I grow there? That's a space available for me. The much lucky ones do have a backyard, which there is a space so that you can start doing directly on the soil. So these are the spaces which currently is available. But like urbanization is happening and like the population getting built over, we know that this space is going to be shrinked. That's where it's very important on Dr. Anand's thoughts today on how it is going to be important on verticulture, on vertical farming, and also on the uh, hydroponic system. Here, so we also find that the new technologies, new organizations are pitching into the space on how it can be helpful. So it's for the us as an urban farmer to see that what technology suits me and what can be fixing to my space, so that the crops which I want to cultivate, the nutrient which I want to have in my table, it can be cultivated. That's where, especially with the vertical farming, it can be very IIHR, like Dr. has already mentioned, has been very much going forward in finding solution. That it's not only the government institutions, but there are public sector institutions which are also putting in their efforts. And now, as you go in and finding out on searching what's available around this, it's very simple that you have tailor-made solutions which, rather than from a larger space, can fit into a space which is there in the balcony, or which can fit into a space which is there on your terrace. So this is all the space which is available. Also, it brings to me to be also thinking on how the recyclable materials can be used, for seeing that how the space management can be done in a home gardening point of view. So that's where the space which is available for us. Now, once we go into the space, the very primary thing which comes is on what are the media we are having. Of course, as we all know, what a media or what soil plays is very clear. It is a reservoir of plant nutrients, which is required very much for the plants. It is going to be holding the plant, is going to support the water intake. It's also supporting the plant on stability part of it. And it is also going to be a media which can have air and water circulation. So that's a fundamental when it comes to what type of media or substrate we should be selecting in comes in a home garden. And if you look at it, of course, the media which is currently available, we all have the thoughts that soil can only be one of the media which can be grown. Of course, soil is the thing which cultivate on which we can grow anything. And the suitable soil which can be for a home garden is going to be a sandy loam, which will help the whole potting or the plants which we are putting with the proper nutrients and also the aeration which is required for the plant system. Now, when we look into the changing scenario, as urbanization happens more, we also find, I stay in Bangalore, which every day I see is developing from a garden city into a city of concrete buildings. For me to find even a small pot of soil becomes a challenge. So that's where science needs to intervene and find what can be alternatives which can be there, so that the space which is available for me or for any urban gardener can be totally utilized. And this has two medias. Either it can be an organic media which can decompose, which can be sustainable by using cocopeat or straw or peat moss on the requirement basis of what crops we cultivate, or then selecting the the inorganic media like sand, perlite, or vermiculite, which by itself cannot be a media to grow, but of course it can combine with organic media and provide a very good media for the plant growth in an urban home garden. So that's something which we need to, as a home gardener, we need to start thinking of. Again, as we think a step ahead, it's something like hydroponics can be one of the very efficient thing which can be there on a space which is available. For me, when I look at hydroponics, it takes to me on the basic fundamental, which 20 years or 25 years before, which I had with my money plant put in a pot. But then today the science has developed, as there has been research which has gone on what exactly can be the different type of hydroponic systems and what plant can be planted in that system. So very clearly, I would not go deeper into this subject because probably the coming series would also have experts who will be delivering much into the hydroponics. But I would like to have a thought on, or just start thinking on, how hydroponic system can also be one of the very suitable media for growth in a home garden. So that's where we can have a proper selection depending on where we are, the space available to select the exact correct media for my home garden. Of course, like everyone knows, it's very important to see that how a seed is there, that depends the future of the plant. And in an urban context, where we know that the basic vegetables what we select are all either going to be very much propagated through seeds, bulbs, or vines. So I can have my tomato, I can have my hot pepper, or beans, or chili, or my bell pepper going from the seeds. But of course, my bulbs can be very much propagated, especially with garlics, onions, which can be very much propagated with this vegetative part of it. And gourds, which are vines, can be very well selected for the media of propagation. But I would like to have bring a thought out here, is that in an urban context with a home garden with a space available, how it is very important to select the type of seeds what we have. Though there are two types of seeds which are open pollinated, which and the hybrid seeds have been like trying to see that how the best potential can be taken out from the variety. That's a research which is being, science and research is involved in finding out how each hybrids can perform to the requirement of to requirement of a farmer. But on an urban context, in order to grow a healthy vegetable, how it's going to be important. So I would like to have certain thoughts on the urban healthy vegetable cultivation, primarily to be very selective on the vegetables, seeds, especially what we are going to cultivate. Once we select the seed, it should be very much having a very much direct proportion with what space what is available for me, what type of cultivation media or substrate I am going to do. So this is going to be very much decision on the selection of vegetables, which would directly have an impact on the healthy growth. Of course, India is a country which is spread across with different geography, with different weather conditions. So, a very basic knowledge of what the weather pattern is going to be while selecting the vegetable seeds is going to be also critical in having a vegetable which can grow and healthy. Yes, like I was bit more on the seed part. the science has developed and started giving much more important factors like pest and disease tolerance. So when I said pest and disease tolerance, we have started finding out hybrids which can very well withstand a virus, which can very well be which be tolerant to a early blight or early blight part of it, diseases. So how do we select a seed? It's very important to see that what geography we are and what could be this disease or pest which can be out there and go for a seed selection. A type, or when we go for a seed selection, is going to be also very important. We have plants which can be grown throughout or can be maintained for a longer period of time, but considering what we have the space available, how do we select the seed which is much more on an early maturity part of it? So what happens is we are able to develop a cycle in such a way that during a period we get the maximum yield of the fruit, and then start looking at re-changing or recycling our cycle, or bringing in the new cycle of vegetables and fruits, which can maintain a total continuous cycle. This will also be very important in having a healthy vegetable. Not to mention on the planting methods, while we started understanding from the urban gardeners what challenges they find. So one of the major part was on the germination part of it. And while we dig a bit more deeper into what method they used or what type of what it has been done, we could see that the planting methods has been not exactly the way which is required. So a general thing which need to be as a home garden, we need to take it up, is that the smaller seeds needs to be first of all grown in a nursery and later transplanted, depending on the plant what we are taking, onto the main pot area, so that it can have a healthy withstand and it can grow better. Larger seeds, of course, we can do it cultivating directly on the pots which we are readily mixed with the nutrients which is required for the plant. So it's primarily very important to see that how the seed selection and how the characteristics of each seed what you as a home gardener requires could be a decision factor in making a healthy vegetable cultivation. As we know, once the seed is planted, it's very important to understand how the nutrient management is there. Even if it's going to be a disorder, which could be from a nutrient management perspective, but we have seen many times people interpreting it as a disease, as a pest, not as a pest, but majorly as a disease. So here we know that as a home garden perspective, it is very important to see that what the major nutrients are going to be helpful and how the micronutrients. So again, it's very important to see that the nutrient source which are available for us, we have organic source and inorganic source. When we want to grow for a healthy vegetables, always we can be very much that an organic source could be a better part of it to start with a growing part of it. But since the time is small, we have a small window part of it to get the maximum advantage benefit of the space utilization. It is also very much advisable to go into a fertilizer applications, which can be on which can directly feed the required nutrients into the plant. So again, we are seeing granular fertilizers, the basic NPK, which has been very much cultivated, which has been approved by the government of India and been developed by and been marketed by many of the companies. Again, it also makes to bring out with the new systems of hydroponics, the new system of drip irrigation, which people want to take it up. The advanced water soluble fertilizers are very important. These fertilizers do very much as we want to go into technological advancements, these are going to play a very important part of it, and this is going to be also helpful to see that how the the fertilizers which are there will be helping on the healthy vegetable part of it. I would, for a healthy, so while we have this criteria for vegetable fertilizers selection, the primary thing which needs to be for growing a healthy vegetable from an urban home garden perspective is like what is the media we are going to cultivate. So the selection of what type of fertilizer which I would like to take, whether I'm going to have an hydroponics or whether I'm going to have a soilless media, which could be a coco peat or it could be a soil, depends. That depends on the selection process. Again, it depends on the crop what I am going to select. So it's very difficult during this whole small period to exactly give a fit in one solution for every crop. It will differ. So each crop would have its own nutritional requirement as far as plant growth is concerned. Again, the application of a fertilizer is very important when it comes to the duration of the crop, on what stage of the crop it is. So if it is the early phase where the plant requires a growth and establishment, that's where it's very important to have the nitrogen and phosphorus. But later, as we see that we have the yielding part of it, we have the fruiting part of it, how potash is going to be important. And again, when we look into it, it is also very important what media we are using. So if we are not going to have a media which is soil, it's as going to be an urban home growing. When we depend on the media of a soilless cultivation, a very important role also is played by the micronutrients, where we need to very much supplement with the micronutrients. Now, once we decide on what we do with the fertilizer part of it, then it's very important to go on how do you select the fertilizers. Today, as I know, probably our farmers friends would be knowing much more very clearly the difference between what a spurious and what a fertilizer is going to be, or how it is going to be consistent on using a fertilizer which is being quality driven, which is being produced under the government regulations. So it's very, very important not source, because fancy names comes up, but how each fertilizer we get the correct fertilizer. The source which is producing, probably it could be the companies which are producing with a registration with the government and providing us. Nonetheless, to mention, in an urban context, it is very important to see that how do we store the fertilizers, because many times we have also seen if it is not stored properly and then if it is put across in places which is moist, probably the nutrient part goes off and then we have left with only the inert material. So in order to, in a nutshell, in order to have a healthy vegetable growth and home garden perspective, we need to be very, very selective on what fertilizer and the media which is there, and then try to take a decision making on how to grow it. I would like to just, like I previously mentioned, I would like to take you through what different vegetable deficiencies would look. So probably I need not have a lengthy elaboration on how each deficiency looks like, but to mention how the main fertilizers deficiencies of major nutrients can have an impact, we can very clearly see. An a nitrogen deficiency can always be leading to a plant which discoloration. And again, we see the drying of the leaves from side to bottom. A deficiency which is there with phosphorus can always the bluish green color. A stunted growth is always visible part of it. Again, it's very, very, it becomes sometimes as a urban home gardener that it becomes a mix. It's a doubt factor on whether what I have to do, whether it's a disease or as a nutrient deficiency. So it's very important to understand on what the nutrient deficiencies can be or related with the with the crop which you are doing it, and then supplement with the nutrients what is required. Again, looking at the major challenge of again the disease management on a home garden. Uh, the home garden, if you look at it with a small space, with a level of area what we have to grow, we have seen that the spread of inoculum can be basically through the seed material, or it could be the soil or the water what we use. It can be through the airborne, which has been not as spread as field conditions, but it can be airborne or it can be through the insects part of it. So these spread of inoculum basically again divided into two, which can be basically taken as the fungal part of it and bacterial. We have different management practices which need to be taken for the fungal growth or a bacterial growth. But of course, a disease management can be very well done in an urban part, because there is a we are having the cultivation done in a very space which can be regulated. So a very important factor which can be on disease management can be done by, number one, is to reduce the inoculum, source of inoculum. Secondly, it can be managed by using the correct cultural practices, because many times we see that there is a disease, it falls off, it remains there, or probably we put it back into the same for it to decay and develop or decay into the media, but then that's a spread. So how do we, the big important factor is these disease, identify it, how does it spread, and then do the cultural practices so that we can bring down the disease pressure in the urban area where home garden we are doing. Of course, by doing this certain times, we always cannot be getting a control of the diseases. That's where the use of chemistries. That's where the use of the organic, the biofungicides needs to come in. And if you look at it, how we can have a management or how we can take it up on a healthy cultivation, I would again bring back the thoughts for an urban gardener to do on the seed selection part of it. So how do I do is to see that the seeds which I am selecting, especially for my home garden, is going to be disease tolerant, so that whatever I do can be helpful with the space, the time which I am putting in, and the energy which I am putting in. A proper identification of these diseases needs to be done, so that if it is going to be a fungal or a bacterial, the remedy measures can be done according. Primarily in a home garden, we need to, the sanitization is going to be a very, very important factor. So when I look into sanitization part of it, how it can be regulated the water, so that half the diseases which are spread through the water can always be reduced, or the multiplication which is there because of the moisture which is present there can be reduced. We can have a very good home garden when you look into healthy growing for management of diseases. We have bioagents which can be done. So probably a mixing up of fungicides, especially with the trichoderma or probably with the pseudomonas during the soil or on the media which we are starting to prepare, is going to help us control many of the diseases. And of course, the last resource, depending on the size of the area, the plants what we have, or the area number of plants which we do, can be a chemical alternative. And I would suggest, while going for a chemical alternative, is to see that how a chemistry which can be there with a green triangle, which could be much more safer, which can break down into residues, into metabolites which are not going to be on higher MSDL level. While using a chemistry, again on home garden for a safe and healthy practice, we need to see how the application methods can be, especially while we are spraying or while we are taking it up. So that's very critical part when we want to have a healthy growth, because we don't want to spray and take it back. So that's where again the post-harvest interval after each sprayer need to be understood. So the chemistries, every chemistry has a recommendation for the days of a period after which we can go ahead with it. So that's something which is very critical for looking for a healthy, once we get a produce which is disease free, but to see that how it can be healthy, and it can be much more easy of consuming without the fear of having any chemistries in it. Of course, when for me, these are the basic diseases. Means there is a large disease which is there, file from their alternaria to anthracnose, or could be a leaf spot. Identification becomes a very important factor. So it's a very important thing on home garden, on how do we identify these diseases and then how do we find a solution for it. uh, for healthy part of it, again, on a home garden, on a home garden front of it, if we see that a disease or a plant is beyond a level where it cannot be revived, the very best alternative is to see that how we can remove it out and replace it with a new crop in that pot. So a rotation of the crop in that pot mixture can also be helping to bring down the pressure of the disease if it is through soil. Uh, Going forward, if you look at it, other than the disease management, it is also very important to see how the pest management can be done. And like I previously talked, one of the biggest challenges while we started reaching to the customers to understand what it is to identify whether these are insects or these were damages due to the disease part of it. And once we go into the disease, again, from the disease we come to the pest. And pest, it is again divided into a larger category of seeing what insects or mites are there. And depending on the agroclimate, we can always see that sometimes mites flare up, or it could be the insects, especially in a home garden perspective, majorly would be with the sucking pest which are there. Because we also have plants, the area which is much more with ornamentals plants in this area, so of growing, because whether it is an apartment complex or the nearest place which is there. And if you divide a home garden on the damage of how the pest damages the crop, again, it can be very widely divided into two, basically the sucking pest and the borers. Of course, why I divide it into two is also depending on how do we use a management method for the group or the attack which we are seeing on the plant. As a home garden perspective, when we draw into pest management, it is very important to see that how an IPM practice can be taken up. So this could be taking up with the cultural methods, or it could be mechanical methods, or probably putting out the physical with an yellow sticky traps, biological using the BTs, or it could be using the chemical methods. I'm not going to explain with a limited time, but I would like to throw the details on how it can be controlled. And of course, to take on to what we can do on a healthy cultivation. Here again, when I take it out on a healthy cultivation of vegetables on an urban garden or home garden perspective, I would like to emphasize the importance of the seeds. So seeds are going to be a very important factor when it comes to tolerance to certain insects. So how do we plant certain seeds which I want to grow a tomato, or I would like to go with a cucumber, what I would chili, what I would seek the hybrid, which would be much more easy for me to cultivate in the space which is available without using much of uh, chemistries. So that's something which is very, very primarily important. Again, on a sequence part, we all know that there are alternative hosts which are there. We always have the chrysanthemum, which can be also alternative host in many of the cases. So when an urban garden or the space where we have, it is also good to see that if there could be certain ornamental plants which can be also an alternative part in our space which is available, so that it's not the vegetables are going, but the color, the overall, it can also act as an alternative host. So here I would also like to emphasize that it's very important to see that the dead material or the infected plant which are there needs to be removed, because the space which is available, and we spend time to see that how do we nurture it, how do we maintain the small space which we have. It's very clear that removal of these things will help in bringing down the pest and also helping us to have a healthy vegetable cultivation. Of course, it's very important to see that how the identification of pest is there. Once the identification of pest is done, then probably we can start looking at the solutions which is already in the control measures, like whether we need to have an yellow sticky trap which can take up certain part of insects which is getting attracted to the plants, or it can be use of botanicals like the azadirachtin, or maybe using the neem cake in the soil mixture or the media mixture or pongamia cake, to see that how using such botanicals we will be able to manage the insect. Of course, again, being a company, again, I would like to bring here a thought. It's not that botanicals or the physical methods sometimes could be giving a final solution. So that's where chemistries play a very, very vital, important role. And it's very important to see that how do we do the right chemistries, because many of the urban garden, uh, we go to a place while picking up the chemistries for management of pest. It's just we see that you go pick up whatever the cheapest available or whatever the person gives. But it's very important to see that while we use or select these chemistries, how do we select chemistries which are the green triangle, which are going to be with a broader spectrum, which can give a control of both for a sucking pest and or for a borer. It's very important to see that what type of the, again, not to mention, means here is where I would like again to emphasize on the spraying method and the safety part of it, because like when we are using the chemistries, it's very important to see that how, where we are spraying, what type of crop we are spraying, and then when is the stage of the plant. The stage of the plant is very important on while spraying the chemistries, because many times if you are using a broad spectrum, and then it is going to be very much coinciding with the flowering period, which pollinators would also be available, it's better to avoid those. So the spraying time is, and the stage of the plant is going to be also very important in making the decision factor when it comes to the management of or spraying of chemicals. And again, it's very important to see that how a healthy vegetable can be grown by reading the labels through and finding what is the post-harvest interval, pre-harvest interval. So here it says that each chemistry, when we go for spraying, it has got a certain period to break down. And once it breaks down, these metabolites are not going to have an impact. So that's where we also need to understand that insect management on how this can be very well selection process can be done. So that's where a cultivation can be done on a healthy way. But overall, here I would like to emphasize is that for a home garden, for cultivating a healthy vegetable, it's very primarily important to select the seed. And once we select the seed, which is much more rightly helping us to find the tolerance to these disease, these pests, we can also find the cultural methods followed by the management through chemistry by using the right science behind it and using the right chemical. Few of the I have put across few of the pests and diseases for a just briefing on what are the different pests. And so we have the sucking pest, which is aphids, thrips, whiteflies, and mites. So these are the sucking pests which damage the plant, and initially, basically, mostly during the initial growth phases. Later, as we grow, we also see that there are damages to the borers, though leaf-eating caterpillars are less, but we see that borers are going to be much more damaging part in these vegetables. So that's where it's very important to see how the cultural practices and also a chemical management chemistry can be used for the management of these pests. Going forward, it is also very important to see that how do we grow and how do we establish. So making it brief, so I would like to take here, like I mentioned, as we see a basic fundamental that for a home garden, if it is going to be grown with a small seed, which are small in size, probably the primary thing which needs to be done is to create it, first of all, develop it on a nursery, and then start it going to the main pot where you want to transplant. The boulder seeds, of course, like I mentioned, we can always go directly to the pots where we have the ready mix or the media to be where it can be put. We also need to see that how this staking can be done, and shade management. Of course, we know that certain Certain plants can be very much during the sunny, but certain plants we need to shift it onto the shade so that the heat is not going to have a damage on these plants. So that's going to be critical on depending on what type of plant we are going to select and then going to cultivate. So that's going to be very, very critical when it goes to the establishment of a home garden in an urban context part of it. As far as advisories are concerned, like previously Dr. Anand has very clearly explained on that importance of how IARI and ICAR are also working on to see that the dissemination of knowledge is there from the research and the development to the people who are in seeking the knowledge. So that's where different advisories from the government institutions play a pivotal role. They play a very vital role. Of course, there is a parallelly, we have the public sector organizations. We have MNCs which work with research and development to provide solutions which are much more context to the current situation and understanding the changing of that. So that's where MNCs like Bayer also play a very important role in bringing the advisory and spreading of knowledge. We also have organizations which are going to be research based and also NGOs which do a lot of advisory part. But mostly it is being working across in the urban, not in an urban context, but always in a small garden, small farmer or small holding farmers. So that's where all these organizations basically work on. Majorly, when it comes to the advisory for the urban population, I think one of the major people, those who work, probably their advices are sometimes valid based on the experience which they do, or it could be the intuition what they have, are the freelancers, which is always a free advice, especially the gardeners who come into the apartment complex who do for multiple people, or social media right now, which is taking up a larger space in as you go into this into the digital space to understand what's happening. It's being occupied with this space. So we see that how the advisory part is being staggered. But I would like to take here on as Dr. Pritam has introduced, I represent Bayer. So I would take from here on how Bayer is going to help in home garden for a healthy growing of vegetables. So just a brief about Bayer. We run with a purpose of saving the most human needs of the health and food. And of course, our purpose is to see that how science can help for a better life. That's a basic things we are guided with. And of course, we are running to see that how, with a vision of how we can provide a health for all and hunger for none, as the growing population needs the nutritional requirement and also the health requirement, whether it is for human, for management in healthcare, or it is from agriculture. Bayer is committed to do and develop the solutions which can be helpful for the magnet. Bayer is an organization which started in 1863 with almost a legacy of more than 150 years. But in India, we are there for the last 125 years. So we in India are present a prehistoric time and then have been serving the community of farmers to see that how with with the innovations in the chemistry what we have, with the research of hybrids what we have, can add value to the people and the community. We are globally present. So our research also is being done in such a way that it can be helpful for a larger community and it can be spread across the globe. Bayer spends almost 10% of its revenue back into the research so that we can bring solutions that are going to be much more relevant in the current time, and it can be also a sustainable part of it. From here, I would just like to take on what urban customers, I would like to say on how as Bayer Seminis, we would like to address the customers of home garden. Like I told previously, we try to understand the different concerns of an urban gardener. So when we came across on finding what are the different concerns, we had come across like people thinking on where to buy a quality, or where can I reach the seed, or where can I get the material of quality, where can I grow my seed, how to grow with the nutrient management, or rather, is there someone or reliable source where I can find an advisory. So finding these multiple dots, we did a back working. We started working and finding and providing how as a home garden solutions we can provide it to the urban gardener. So that's where we try to address the basic queries of what as an urban person has on home garden. One, we try to provide as buyer as a trusted brand with buyer de Reuters and Semnis on the trusted seed part of it, or it could be with the chemistry on what the trust we have for the legacy which of 125 years in India and also more than 150 years globally. So that's what we bring in on to the customer. Again, when we went understanding, like all of you know, that today, even if there is a hybrid seed, we could see that it could be fitting much more for a larger cultivation, for a field cultivation. That's where we came up on thinking and bringing up the solution for the urban customer with a very customized pack of 10 seeds. So it's going to be very much customized in such a way that a person who is with urban population can always buy few packs which are very much for him, not to waste it and then to grow in his space. To address the requirement of media, that's where we also started finding out partners and who can be also a reliable source in providing us the grow bags and also with the carpet media. That's where we associated and are in collaboration with Home Grow, who are providing us with the grow bags and the media of carpet. So why it also helps, like once it goes with the sterilized media of carpet, it also reduces the disease or the inoculum which can be there if otherwise we use the garden soil or a non-authorized or a source which we pick up from the market. So that's where we wanted to intervene and provide a solution. As far as the nutrient management, this is where Bayer has collaborated with Yara. So as you know that most of us would see that fertilizers are always in larger packs. But here is where Yara has come forward to also provide a solution to the urban gardeners or the person who is interested in home garden with a customized pack of 500 grams. So this could be very much suitable for a person who is having an urban space to provide with an exact, so that it's not wasted, but it can be very, very clearly utilized in his place. Now, what we did is also like for the agronomic practice, what to do. Every home garden pack, we also start provided with a QR scan in order to take with the taking in the advancement of technology. We also are provided with a QR code wherein a person who buys that pack can go into detail of what I would take you through that. So he is able to get the informations of the hybrid on how to grow and what to do. Of course, if we also have started to be connected with the advisory on how people can be connected with a toll-free number and how it can be connected. So it's an overall connecting of dots which we brought in to as a solution for the urban home garden. So here, if I have to take it up, like the QR code, how does it work? So sorry. So I'll just take you through how once a person takes it, how it's going to be scanning and how does what all information he take. So probably this is again, once a person scans across, the detail of informations what we provide is including what the nutrient content of the vegetable is available with for him. Again, it's also the product features. One can be the first harvest being taken, and of course the complete growing tips, like when it goes for a soil or pot mixing, what it is there, how it can be done, what time it needs to be transplanted, what's the period and how to do for a staking part of it, how irrigation is going to be very important part of it, And not to to mention in detail is that how the nutritional management is there. So of course we have very well done with the crop hybrid which is there, taking into the plant and what can be the exact nutrition which needs to be fed at different stages, so that, like I told, what the nutrient can be provided to the plant at growing stages, or it could be a fruiting stage. So that's very well designed. And once you do the harvesting, later we also are providing what can be the pest which can be there on that vegetable, or the diseases, common diseases. So this helps very much urban gardener to just try and see what's the disease, matching it with the plant specimen or the disease specimen which you have, and finding out what can be or what is the disease which is there with you. And then of course we have provided exactly what can be the do's and what are the don'ts while we start looking at. So this is a comprehensive total package which we try to produce, which we try to provide it to a urban gardener. So that's what we are. That's what we are committed to the urban gardening community, and wanted to provide the solutions. What all we have, of course we tried to capture the maximum vegetables which are there which are being generally used by the Indian community, especially which occupies the space on the urban table. And also we wanted to give a bit of exposure to the exotics, which we also wanted to have the urban people to understand, which could be the it's the lettuce or yellow watermelon. So we wanted to give exposure to the seeds, which are going to be not only for a nutritional value, but it's going to be also helpful for the urban gardener. And again, where these products are available, have been available, so we made it very clear, the channel. So it's available with, though we started and we rolled it out last December, so it started reaching the urban retail partners. And of course we have started our baby steps to go through Amazon. So e-commerce, as you all know, the urban home garden is always looking at the fingertip solutions or the reach through fingertips. So that's where we have connected it through the Amazon, and that's where we see that we are providing these packs through the Amazon, so that people can very readily make access to these packs. And the buying options, we give a total option of to a customer, where he can always procure only the seeds which are required, or he can always select for a combo pack, which would be a screed, grow bag, or fertilizer. Of course, this is right now only available. The seeds are available online, but the combo packs could be the retail partners would be available because of certain regulations which are there. But this is an option which is available. And also we give any flexibility depending on the money he wants to spread, and rather what vegetables he would like to pick and choose for his home garden. So that's a flexibility we offer. And as far as advisory is concerned, we are looking at providing any urban gardener who wants to find what solutions buyer has. We can be always connected through the Hello Buyer toll-free number, or always which will be available on the pack shot, and also which is available on the screen right now. We can be connected over the email, which is homegarden.india@buyer.in. Again, it's something more you want to know about the buyer world, on what we do, the different verticals which we provide solutions. We can be provided on the buyer websites. So this is the advisory part. So once it's at any geography around across India, so it's always, we would be, one of our colleague is there who would be able to connect and provide the solutions to you. That's all the advisory part which we try to reach to the pan-India operations. So this is in brief which I wanted to provide as buyer, and also as how to grow a healthy vegetable in urban context. So I would take this opportunity to thank Dr. Brahma for the creating such an occasion, so that we can talk to the urban population and then see that what they need to do and what is required for growing a healthy vegetable. So thanks a lot for the patient listening, and I hand it over back to Dr. Brahma.
Thank you, Mr. Raji, for taking us to the world of home gardening and the plan of Bayer Semnis. Fantastic. Hope the uh, friends who are with us listening to it, they must have got educated on the part of that home garden is not just like that. Home garden is as important as any other subject or science, which I think Raji has brought it out. Now I request Dr. Kalia just briefly highlight the points which Raji has elaborated.
Thank you, sir. It's indeed a wonderful talk that we have had from Raji Joseph. I think he has not left any stone unturned to make the viewers, especially those viewers who city dwellers are not farmers, and many are not aware of how to go about. I think it's right from scratch to the top. Everything has been explained in to those who are not aware of anything how to go about. That is wonderful, and he has touched all point wise from transformation in urban horticulture, where the space, large, compact, how to go about, whatever the space is available, how you will go, what you will do, where to select seeds from, how to know what to do, how to grow seeds, that nursery growing, especially that of plug nursery, which could not be talked about, but plug nursery would be wonderful for city dwellers, because they can do in their kitchen or balcony, anywhere they can grow the plants they require, and put up in the space which finally they decide from that point of view. And he has also talked about the nutrient that we get from these crops to feed our urban population, which is very important, because that's why we are going to grow these crops in urban horticulture, in balcony, roof, and also because of the reason that the consumers today are very scared about the vegetables which are coming in the market, that they say that we don't know where they have been grown and what has been gone into. So they are very much health conscious, and everybody is looking forward to grow the small quantity of vegetables in front of them by them themselves, so that they know what has gone into the product which ultimately they are going to consume, because that satisfies them. So from that point of view, it's a wonderful that Dr. Raji Joseph has given about the nutritional aspect of these vegetables that we consume, and we uh, have good health from that point of view. What are the nutrients required for our body metabolism? And then he has also talked about the factors which are required for urban farming, that health consciousness talked about, awareness, family bonding, which is very important, because everybody is scared because of COVID today. And there had been a lot of telephone calls for us also, how to make proper use of, because they are getting depressed, no work to do. And this is very healthy proposition to go for growing vegetables at home, or even ornamental plants at home, which they can utilize their time at home. They get exercise, so bodily health also, physical health also they'll get from that point of view. And the emotional connect that he has explained in a beautiful term. Then urban gardening evolving and making space good, because that is the thing. And the choice of vegetables that all he has explained very nicely, it depends upon the individuals who are going to grow these vegetables for them, which they like, which they don't like, and what is the space available. And the key elements in home gardening that he has given detail with respect to media, seed, nutrient management, pest management, and advisory, and the urban gardening space where to grow, as mentioned, balcony, roof, or the terrace. And in that, especially in terrace, which he has explained in the advisory towards the end also, that growing bags, which is wonderful thing, because that is a pack of the things where the grower has not to bother about to get everything separately. It's one unit, and it can be placed on the rooftop or balcony wherever you require, which is wonderful thing. I found it's tremendous. You have not to bother about any other things. And then urban garden space utilization, there where you go for these different types of method, vertical farming, where pictorially also it was explained, hydroponic, small hydroponic units are also now it is available. Depending upon space, one can make use of them. And the use of recyclable material in that he has explained. Different types of media substrate has been uh, in detail has been explained. I hope the viewers must have been educated on the aspect. And the propagation part of different vegetables, from seeds, bulbs, vines, cuttings, or whatever, and the types of seeds which they can pick up, whether they are going for OP varieties or for hybrid seeds. For home growers, hybrid seeds are good, because in some of the crops hybrids are not available. That's why he has mentioned the green leafy vegetables like that. So that's important aspect to pick up, because the urban dweller always talk about hybrids, because they have heard like that, they have read like that. That's why it's important. And then cultivation of healthy vegetables, selection of vegetables, the requirement of seeds which has been selected, like that, whether the host plant, we say resistant variety seeds, which is important aspect to get rid of various chemicals to control, because half of the control, if the resistant varieties have been selected, will be done. And in that, the important aspect is that the today grafted vegetables are also becoming available slowly, and tomorrow they'll be available in plenty everywhere. So one can go for grafted seedlings also, which provides that aspect, that if there is soil borne problem from that point of view, although from growing bag and other things, those aspects has been explained by Joseph ji in detail. And then planting methods, he has explained that it's for small seed that you have go for seedling raising. And the large seed you can directly grow them. And then nutrient management, what is the importance of different nutrients, when they need to be applied, and the types of nutrient sources, whether organic or biofertilizer, which we have in that organic source, or manures you are going for, compost, which are the different things available in your quarter, where the availability nowadays in cities are becoming available. And many entrepreneurs also can enter into this business and make their livelihood from that point of view. In their vicinity, they can utilize that services and make available to the growers. Inorganic fertilizers also he has in detail mentioned, and in the selection of fertilizer based on the media of cultivation, based on crop, based on stage of the crop, that he has explained very nicely. And it was useful to the viewers. And then key checks which he has mentioned for the source of fertilizer, consistency, storage of fertilizer, which is important aspect. Sometimes you keep them unattendedly at a place where there may be moisture or rain coming, and then it gets spoiled and you lose the nutrient which is required. And likewise, from disease management point of view and insect management point of view, the selection of seeds and identifying the diseases, and the how to get rid of the inoculum spread, that he has explained in detail. and also how to reduce the source of inoculum spread, and the removal of infected portions of the plants, where the whole plant, if it is the spread is more quick, then whole plant needs to be removed and buried or burnt. That is required, otherwise the inoculum will further spread. And then use of chemicals, which he has very cautiously mentioned, that although the growers are not interested to make use of chemicals, but today even by there are many new molecules which are coming up, which has very short baiting period, and also the stage of spray, which Joseph has mentioned, which is very important depending upon the crop, and whether at flowering stage you are spraying. If you are doing that, then in fruit crops, especially where the insects comes to pollinate, they may get killed. So that time spray has not to be there. And when you expect that the crop is going to be harvested within a week, then also you should not go for such sprays, whatever. Even if the baiting period is less. So, there should be a widening factor in that aspects. So the overall healthy management aspect, he has also explained very nicely, step by step, for both insect pest and diseases, which is important. I hope the viewers must have been benefited with this aspect, because that's a major chunk of the growing of these vegetables point of view. And then how to grow and establish home gardens, these crops which has already been explained, and then advisory form, which he has mentioned very nicely, which is actually very important aspect for urban dwellers, where to go, where to find these things from, and online system. And also he has mentioned that there are public institutions, but from public institutions may not be that easy as the advisory services. They are going, those who have access to nearby, they can of course visit and get those advisory services, and also from the website of the institution they can look into. But the MNCs, especially buyers role, and the NGOs, freelancers, he has mentioned, because we see that in cities, in different societies, these gardeners keeps on coming with plant material, and the soil also they keep, and they help the growers in doing those things. But it's always good if you do yourself, because you get energized for all those things. And towards the end, the what is buyer doing, that which has its major motto to provide health to all and hunger for none, which is very important aspect. And entire setup of things he has explained wonderfully, where and what are the different things required, and how the advisory help that buyer has planned to give, how it's going to further improve in the future with the aid of Amazon for online making availability of entire setup of things, combo plan, or the whatever the requirement of the individual growers is. From that point of view, that was a wonderful explanation of all those things. And I am fully convinced that the viewers who had been attending this must have been, because I have given this detail to the kitchen gardens associations within Delhi, and also some the those who are looking forward for such services, who I had contact. I have passed on this information of today's lecture to them. I hope all must have been educated and benefited with this talk, and I wholeheartedly congratulate for the excellent talk by Raji Joseph ji, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Kalia,
you.
highlighting the points of a very elaborative talk by Mr. Raji. First of all, I thank Chief Guest, Dr. A.K. Singh, who could find time to highlight the things which ICR and other ministries are thinking on promoting urban horticulture, particularly the home gardens, and the important point which he raised, the apps. Through apps, you can have the information. So nice of him. to spare some time with BSHF, and I assure in his absence that BSHF will regularly be in touch with him and assist in the programs of ICR in dissemination of the knowledge what we have got the mission to disseminate the knowledge on horticulture. Today's talk has given me confidence. I thought of what I am going to talk about urban horticulture and that too home garden. But Mr. Raji has given you, I think, sufficient to think about that how technical and how important to know about the inputs available all around the home dwellers. They think from where to get the inputs. They keep on wondering, but he has clearly told that sitting at home, you can have the input whatever you need, and that part of his talk I liked. So take advantage of this buyer's hello. So you say hello to them, and they will help you. So hello means help to you.
Yes.
Please make use of that. That is the gist of the today's talk. And Raji has brought out subject in such a way that there is a need of technicalities and science on every step to have the healthy vegetables or healthy produce. If not vegetable, even the strawberry and other things, which we will be covering later in this series. So I think this was a very encouraging talk, inaugural talk. If it is encouraging, this series will go on very well. We have taken a little extra time because it was required being the in the first talk, and we resumed after I think say a month or so. Anyway, we will be available on every Tuesday at 7 p.m. with one or the another interesting topic related to urban horticulture, as we consider urban horticulture as important as the open field or the rural horticulture, that we are trying to just give the information, required information to the say urban dwellers. And in urban dwelling, two things I always highlight. One is that the children education about the plants or about the food. Another one has come up, the old age, where I'm also in that category. The senior citizens can spend their time better, and that is not only spending the time. If they do the home gardening or urban gardening, mostly the people are there in the senior citizens in town, they don't find time how to spend the time, while in rural area there are ample avenues, but in urban area it is not. So they can choose home garden as a source of exercise. It is a source of exercise. So exercise, passing the time, and getting a healthy return for their health. What more is required? Is good. So with these words, friends, I wish all of you a happy Republic Day. Enjoy the parade tomorrow and the achievements of the country. With these words, I beg excuse and wish you all good luck, and again, happy Republic Day. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much, sir.